Dave, we talked last time about our own perception of change, our own perception of fear of change, and how what we've been through has actually impacted that. And it made me smile actually, because I remember a wet Tuesday afternoon in Norwich where me and you sat in a meeting room, and I kind of delivered a message to you, which I got completely an unexpected reaction. So yeah, just tell me about how it was for you, Dave.
Yes, that was a memorable occasion, wasn't it, really? One of the more interesting afternoons I think I'd had. Yeah, I mean, I'd been working as a practice lead for a few months, and I'd really worked hard to get into the role. Something I felt really proud about, really pleased to get the role. And it kind of, I suppose in a way, it defined my identity at the time. You know, it was really very much part of what I wanted to do and who I was going to be. And then suddenly out of the blue, my practice sponsor got me in a meeting room and said, Dave Harper wants you to join him on his delivery project. And I think, to be fair, my manager was expecting me to go, oh yeah, that sounds really exciting, but it's fair to say that that's not exactly where I was at the time. It was quite a big shock to me, and I almost felt like it was a step in the wrong direction for me. So yeah, and I think that took him very much by surprise, and I suspect that got back to you quite quickly. And then we did have that famous meeting in the afternoon where yeah, I think you realised that I may not be in the same space as you thought I was.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, in my head, having got the feedback from the practice sponsor, I thought, you know, my first reaction was, what's wrong with this guy? This is a brilliant opportunity. You know, what's wrong with him? He's perfect for it. So what really is the problem? And I'll, you know, let me get in a room with him and sit down and just, you know, sell it to him and just explain it to him.
Yeah, I wasn't really in the mood for selling at the time, was I?
No, I don't think so.
I remember being very much stuck in kind of, you know, we have that model of the change curve where you have the shock, the anger, the denial, then the depression, and then you move into the acceptance and experimentation and carry on with the new experience. And I think I got through shock in about 30 seconds, and then I seemed to be stuck in anger for quite a large proportion of the time. I mean, there wasn't really much in the sense of denial because it was pretty obvious it was going to happen. But I think I really did get, looking back on it, I did get completely stuck in that kind of anger. I think I took it personally in a very negative way, which wasn't really very helpful for anybody. But you know, I mean, I even got a call from the head of IT at Aviva at the time explaining what the decision had been, or what criteria the decision had been made on, and that kind of helped a bit because that gave me a bit more information and a bit more facts. But yeah, you did get the grumpy version of me for quite a few, well, probably a couple of weeks, to be honest, before I got my head around it.
Yeah, and I mean, it was such a contrast because you're such a light-hearted guy and you've always got a smile on your face. You've always got a joke, the way you run workshops, you know, that's your modus operandi. I just hadn't seen you like that before. And I thought, what on earth is wrong with Dave? And it, you know, there's some really big lessons for me actually about communication, because, you know, from our point of view, from a kind of leadership and project management point of view, there was a real issue on this program, and it'd been escalated to a very senior level within IT, and we'd sat down and had a kind of summit meeting. We were working with a third party, and we were working in a different way with different types of business analysts who'd come on shore, and you know, the end result, it just wasn't happening. The requirements conversation just weren't taking place. So this was really kind of, in many ways, last chance saloon for this relationship with this partner. And it seemed to us like the silver bullet was certainly to keep the sponsor happy of the program, and to fix the problem was to say, you know, what we're going to do, IT are going to take their top guy, he's currently running the practice, but we're going to take him off that and we're going to put him on this because your program is more important than anything else we've got on, and more important than running the practice. So in our head, it was a kind of slam dunk, and we were kind of patting ourselves on the back of the fact that we discovered this almost silver bullet that was going to solve everybody's problem. And here was Dave Beckham saying, actually, you know, I don't like that, and I'm going to be really grumpy about it. So you were really kind of the fly in the ointment. But I think the lesson it taught me was that communication isn't about what I think giving the communication, or what David, the practice lead, felt giving the communication. It is 100% about how it lands with the individual. And that's what I hadn't appreciated, certainly at the time. And it taught me a big lesson about getting into the space of the other person and understanding their world and seeing how they might react and being ready for that. And also, it was a massive lesson about context. You know, until, as you said, the head of IT rang you up and talked you through the context, and that kind of made you feel better and got you into a better space, and almost like got you up that change curve a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, you know, presumably he'd given you some context.
Yeah, and I also began to realise it was actually quite a massive compliment. You know, you guys hadn't done it just to annoy me, you know,
No,
which was kind of hugely pretentious of me at the time. But I suppose at that time, because I hadn't got the same life experience, you know, I hadn't been through my experience of being diagnosed and then understanding how change affects people. I suppose I was just kind of, these days, what I do when I know there's a change coming, and this it's in some ways inevitable, is that you can either dwell on it and let it get to you, or you can look for the opportunities. And I think these days, if there's so much change happening and so much change happening fast, that if you dwell on things, you just get left behind. So it would be straight into the opportunities for me now, in the sense of, what can I get out of this that will help me? So yeah, I think it was a learning curve for everybody. I think it also helped that one of the first things you got me to do was to go in and sort out the team and work out who I wanted to kind of work with and who I didn't, because that did give me the opportunity to get some of my annoyance out, I suppose, and probably not in the best way possible, but that did show me also that was a very serious piece of work. So I think after that I buckled down, and you know, the story does end happily ever after, because I did go back to the practice lead assignment after I'd done that program anyway. So it wasn't a complete waste of, well, it wasn't a complete waste of time anyway. There was just so much I learned from it. But yeah, it's funny how the perspectives are different.
Yeah, and interesting, you know, a little nugget of what you said just there is, you know, once you've got that kind of way forward, that looking at the team and sorting out the wheat from the chaff, and, you know, something positive to do that played to your, you know, strong skills in the business analyst domain, then suddenly that gave you I suppose a coping mechanism, really, just to get over the other stuff. You know, until you have that, you often feel that, don't you, that everything's going round in your head and you're just overthinking things and continuously ruminating about things, and sometimes you just snap into that, oh, this is what I need to do next, and that just gives you the way through it all.
Yeah, and there's definitely something I just thought of when you said that, is I suppose because I'd come out of a job that I really valued and was important to me, it kind of dented my confidence as well, you know, so I was probably feeling a little bit vulnerable, thinking, you know, I'm not sure if I can hack this, and the fact that we had a chat about the direction and the planning made a huge difference, because I could then get my head around it. Like you say, sometimes I think you can let a problem get on top of you. And I think as soon as you bring it out into the light, maybe write it all down or do a mind map or something like that, or talk about it with somebody else, it makes it much more manageable. I think when things are in your head and not unsaid, they're much more frightening than they are when you've actually said them. You know, one of the analogies I always use about change is like the shark in Jaws. You know, when you don't see the shark, for the first half of the film, it's terrifying. You just see the fin and the music, the odd leg falling to the bottom of the sea, or bits of people flying about. You then see the shark about 2/3 of the way through the film and you think it's a rubber shark. You know, it kind of, once you see the thing, it's less frightening. And I think that's a tip I would give to people, is if you feel a problem is kind of overwhelming or a challenge is overwhelming, either talk about it with somebody else or get it out on a piece of paper. You know, just throw it out there and make it visible, I think, because it does take some of the fear away from it.
Yeah, and they say, don't they, that communication is a minefield, and also that communication would be great if it wasn't for the people involved. And I know that we've both got some great anecdotes about the communication to large groups. A lot of what we talked about today is one-to-one communication, but once you're in front of a big group, doing that communication, or sitting in the audience at a big group, it is, as they say, a completely different ball game. But let's talk about that some other time. I think it's a topic. Communication is a topic that we ought to spend a bit more time on. But for now, that's been great, Dave. Thanks very much for your
great talking to you.
For your anecdotes. Great. See you later.
See you later, mate.